Hello everyone and welcome back to the Babbling Irons channel. It's been a while for one of these streams. A lot of it was transfer related, but we're past that now. We've had a nice international break, I hope, de-stressing from West Ham and what's going on at the moment. Welcome back, boys. The famous trio are back. How was your international break?
There was no West Ham, mate, so it was pretty good, you know.
Yeah, good shout. I guess at the moment there's a lot of controversy amongst the fan base around what our actual best 11 is and how we kind of move forwards as a team, which is going to get us the results because, we sit 18th at the moment on 4 points, one win, which is away to Villa. Very disappointing start to the season. And there's actually people, journalists that are kind of in the know a bit more saying that, Moyes hasn't got that long to prove himself. It came out yesterday that he has the next 5 games are really crucial for him. And, starting with Wolves on Saturday, how big is that game?
Yeah, we did a pre-record, spoiler alert. But we said for me, I think it is a must-win for him. Not because if he doesn't win, he's going to lose his job, but he needs to get this win to give the confidence to the players that he still is the man to kind of guide them through. And this is just nothing but a sticky patch and a transitional period. You can understand why some fans are agitated. Obviously, some will say, well, it's ridiculous. In part, it is ridiculous. But also, when you look at the fact we've got £200 million spent and only £67 million worth of talent is on the pitch, you can understand why people are starting to get frustrated. So, Moyes has earned the opportunity to get the sack in the sense, but I hate 5-game cycles. We did the same with Bilic, and it's always a stay of execution. You get 2 wins, then all of a sudden things are right and rosy again. Then what happens if you go on another run where you lose 3 or 4 games again? So it's, in my view, it's you're back or you just go. You just make your decision. Look at Chelsea. They just did straight off. Tuchel, no. There are other issues as well with Tuchel, but the fact of the matter is they made a very clear and a very quick decision to make a change and start saying you've got 5 games. It doesn't do good things within the squad because it's constantly, if you're not playing, in some ways it's, well, if another manager comes in, I might get a game. Not saying that players will drop their performances, but it creates so much uncertainty.
Yeah, I mean, you look at when David Moyes first came in for his first stint, survival was key. We did that. Wasn't given the chance. After that, we went with Pellegrini. He's then come back full circle, and we've given him, 2 solid years to work with his squad. Again, that was at the bottom of the league. And, to finish 6th and 7th, I think our fans are probably getting a bit carried away with what we've actually done in the last 2 years. And yes, there's going to be the demand to keep pushing on. Once you establish yourself in the top 7, like we have over the past couple of years, there's always that hunger for success. And, there's kind of more of an importance on those victories that we haven't got, the Forests, the Evertons of this season. And, this game against Wolves is going to be massive. But let's focus on the subjects that matter, which is what actually is our best 11. So we're going to try something. I don't know if this is actually going to work, but we can go through it together and kind of pick out our best 11 after some deliberations, I'm sure. And come to a decent-ish conclusion as to what we think our best 11 is on paper and how we would want to see it, structured in the formation. So let's see if this actually works or if my computer is probably just going to crash. And by magic, we have a little build-up lineup builder, and we're gonna start in goal. Two options there: Fabianski or Areola. Areola hasn't actually.
Before we start, Frank, are we saying we're going with a 4-3-3? Because I think that dictates who we play as well. I think is.
Yeah, I mean, shall we go with a? I mean, I know Moyes wants to play a back 5. Would you guys want to see a back 5 at the moment, or do you think a 4-3-3 is probably the right decision?
I personally don't think we've got the players for a back 5. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I'd go 4-3-3 for now because I think part of the problem for me is how negatively we've been playing, and I just think if you want to get confidence at the moment, you got to get a goal. So
Yeah.
I would go with that more attacking option, and I'd go 4-3-3. I think.
Okay, we'll stick with this 4-3-3 then. So let's start with in goal. Two options, like I mentioned, Areola, Fabianski. Areola hasn't been given a chance really in the Premier League, and has been again our cup goalie. When many thought he was, signed permanently to be that spot instead of Fabianski. But what do you guys think? Because I actually don't think Fabianski's done an awful lot wrong this season. But thinking long term, Areola's probably the number one pick.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's done much wrong. He's probably been one of the better players.
Yeah.
But again, this is something we discussed earlier. Is for me, I personally don't see the point on leaning heavily on players that you don't see past this year. Those players for me, if they've earned the right to be in there and they are outperforming in training, then okay, fair enough. I can kind of agree with it. But for me, if a player's in the last year of their contract, unless they are an absolute well quality player, they are not part of the future. Therefore, you play the team and the players that are part of your longer term future. But I guess when you look at how it is at the moment, our defence probably needs that consistency. So it probably does need Fabianski to start at this point in time whilst we're kind of shipping goals. But, I always feel with Areola, I feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more confident that he's going to be a bit of a better shot stopper. I think at times where he maybe hasn't looked as good as he did when he was at Fulham is because, again, it's just not having that match practice and that match fitness.
Yeah. Sloth, what about you?
Yeah, with view to a long-term solution, I would go Areola. I don't think Fabianski's done that much wrong, as you say. I think if he wants to, if he's going to be the cup keeper from now on, then that's great. You've got a bit of experience in Europe, and it's the same with Areola. He offers that as well. But I think Areola's distribution is that bit better. I also think his throwing is a lot better as well. And if it's just something like claiming a cross and then seeing someone like Bowen running, he's more likely to launch it as opposed to just play it a bit safe and hold on to it a little bit longer, let us get our shape again. But let the opposition get their shape again.
Yeah.
But personally, if we're doing it on paper as the best 11, I would go for Areola.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I know, as I was saying before, Fabianski hasn't done an awful lot wrong this season, but there's definitely times where he's so frustrating. And, with the way football's going, you need your keeper to be more involved in build-ups, and distribution is, a really important thing, especially if we're going to be wanting to play, 4-3-3 and with more creative players. We need to have that trust in our goalie that they're going to be able to play with their feet. I'm not saying Areola is amazing at that, because he isn't. I think he could improve on that. But yeah, he's already shown that he's really good at shot stopping. I think Fabianski's decent at that as well. But if I was to pick one right now, it would be Areola. So are we agreed on that? Should I stick Areola in?
I think so, to be honest.
Cool. We have our first pick. Okay, and he's number 13. Let's go left back. So again, two options: Emerson or Cresswell. Sloth, let's start with you this time. What are you thinking? What do you prefer?
Emerson for me. I just think that when we talk about Cresswell, he's very reliant on the stat-wise. I think he's very reliant on the fact that he will get assists. And that hides a lot of the kind of issues around his pace, lack of awareness and decision making. Now, he's been fantastic for us. Don't get me wrong. I know we're probably going to get people going, he's been our best player over the past 5 years. Well, that can change. Time is linear. So yeah. I think I think we need to be looking at bringing in a younger left back soon, but also we've got a player in Emerson's quality experience, and for me, I don't really understand why Cresswell is one of the first names on the team sheet, particularly when you consider that we have offered no threat aerially. We've offered no threat in terms of our set pieces, really. And for me, I'd go Emerson. It gives us that bit more of an outlet pace-wise, which time and time again we've seen Cress get beaten by. And I also think it would help Scamacca a bit more as well. Just some of the balls that you see in, some of the things that you see Emerson do is movement. It might just drag a defender out wide, give someone a bit more space. And I think his energy, he covers that bit more ground. So for me, I would go Emerson on that left-hand side. But yeah. I don't. Yeah.
I mean, Mike, I kind of already think I know your answer, which is why I've already put 33. But yeah, anything to expand on that?
Yeah, I just think that we are so impotent in our attack at the moment. And as we've said on our pre-record, that we are so reliant on set pieces. And if set pieces are not working and the main reason or one of the main players responsible for set pieces is not performing, then what is he offering other than a player that sits deep and then hits long balls up the line, which are disguised as progressive passes? Like, Cresswell has been one of our better players. I will sit here and say that he has been one of our better players this year, and he has actually not done much wrong. Again, much like with Fabianski, he's probably been better than Soufal, but I just don't have confidence with him in too many areas of the game. He helps us knit play together, but I don't see what he does that Emerson can't do in the times that I've watched Emerson, and particularly when I watched Emerson last year for Lyon, where he was pretty impressive. If the set piece taker is not delivering, then if you got to look at the other parts of his game, and if they're not bringing enough benefits, which they don't in the final third, where we need some help, then maybe we need to look at a player who can bring an impact in that final third.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that Emerson's the better choice at left back. But in terms of the other part of the defence, we'll go to right back because that will then lead us as to whether we've got the two centre backs that I think we probably will. But we've got a few options. So let's just assume Johnson's fit. So we've got Kufal, Johnson, and recently shouts for Kehrer to move to right back. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you think that would be viable? Do you prefer a Johnson or a Kufal, especially with Kufal's form at the moment? What do you guys think in terms of who's the best for this team?
If Johnson's fit, he's in. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no questions. It shouldn't even be Kehrer should be a consideration. For me, Kehrer is a centre-back or a right-sided centre-back within a back three. He's not a right-back. If you've watched him at PSG, you'd know his crossing isn't that great. He's a defensive, yet very accomplished right-back, but he's a defensive right-back. And whilst Johnson is also fairly defensive at times, he does have a decent cross. And for those that will state that, well, his crossing isn't that good, he had much better crossing statistics than Cresswell last season and much better crossing statistics than Soufal. So it's actually perception is he is not good at his deliveries or he's not very good going forward. Truth is, when he comes into our back line, we are a far more assured defensive unit because he's got a good defensive mind, but he can get forward and he's selective in his going forward. So for me, Johnson, quite frankly, should have been a starter last season, whether that be left back or right back. But again, this year, he should be our starting right back.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still undecided on Johnson, to be honest. I see him in games where he's really good defensively, really solid. Definitely one of the better players on the pitch. We saw that last season numerous times. There's just something about him that I just can't get on board with. I don't know what it is. I don't know what game it was this season, but every time he got the ball, it was kind of just like a 50-yard punt over the top. Nothing really composed about it. Yes, he's got, youth on his side in comparison to Kufal, and Kufal's form has been really bad this season, especially, ever since that injury really last season. So
to be fair to Johnson, though, this season he was playing at centre-back, when he was playing. So, let's give him a due. He's played out of position, and he's often played out of position for us. So he probably deserves his time in his natural role.
I think,
yeah.
That bothers me a little bit with Johnson is even when he's had good form, or when he came in and he had an absolute stormer against Lyon, and I know he was playing at left back, but he had a fantastic game, and then as soon as Cresswell was off his suspension, he just came straight back in, and and that kind of annoys me. I do think Soufal looks really. I don't know what he needs, but he doesn't look
void of confidence at the moment.
Yeah.
I think, when you think back to what his tweet was at the end of last season, or I'll see you all next year, hopefully, you just kind of feel that he was one of those players that was picked out as the ones that could be gone this season.
I don't understand how on earth that's a possibility, though, because if you look at his first season, he was fantastic. So to go from that to suddenly, I've got my doubts about him now, when he's been injured for the majority of last season, I don't get it. I think that for me is just.
I think we also have a manager who's pretty unflinching in that, because he'd also used the argument of, well, Dawson was injured for pretty much all of last season and played to levels well above what has been his standard. So I think.
But Cresswell's repeated terrible decision making cost us massively. Yet he's not getting any repercussions for that. So I don't understand the train of thought, and probably why I'm not a Premier League manager. But for me at the moment, I would go Johnson, just because I think Soufal needs some sort of kick up the backside. But to be honest, I don't think he was that bad against Everton. I think people were.
What, Koufal?
Yeah, I don't think he was.
I thought he was poor.
I think in my opinion, I think he covered Bowen, who was absolutely diabolical in that first half. And I think when people were really hammering Koufal, and I think Bowen offered nothing. He did nothing in that Everton game across the whole first half. He was useless, and I didn't really understand where the criticism was, because when you're a right back or either side, if you've got a player in front of you who isn't giving you that option, or isn't, chasing things down and chasing back to help out, then you are seriously exposed. Now, if you're Reece James or whoever, then you're going to probably be able to cover that. But I don't see why that right wing position is so kind of like absolved.
We'll get onto the right wing anyway. But
also, in terms of number two now,
to make a long answer very short, I would go John.
So number two now, Frankie.
Oh, he is number two. He is.
He had a big old number change.
Oh, it got to
big old number two.
I would go Johnson right now over Koufal. I just think since that injury Koufal's had, he just looks so much slower.
I think he looks like he's lost a bit of pace.
Yeah, and
if he's been told that, you need to improve or your future's in doubt, I don't really get how anyone would think that's a confidence booster. He's going to be a bit shot, but we know
he played through the injury last season. Like he was playing with the injury, so I mean, enormous credit for that. But okay, well, we'll go with Johnson. I think, he is the better of the two right now. But neither of them really fill me with that much confidence going, future. But for now, I'd go with Johnson, and then I guess the other two centre backs will probably speak for themselves in Kerr and Zuma, unless Dawson decides to make an appearance for one of you two.
Nope. No.
Cool. That was nice and quick.
Well, there's nothing against Dawson in that. I just think, as we've been saying, we've been pouring on the ball, and Kehrer is a class above when it comes to pretty much all of our centre backs, bar Aguerd. He is so much better on the ball, and he allows us to play out from the back. He's also calm in possession and under pressure, and he's also, let's also call this out, he's been a big leader in this team, which in a team that has been struggling for any kind of character, any kind of leadership. He has been one of the players who has stood out, and he's only been here a short time, but he's really kind of made a point of standing up and trying to pull players together. So I think that's something we also
he should also really have an assist as well. I've registered an assist already from that Spurs game, where he played a number of really top quality balls that you wouldn't expect from a West Ham centre back as such. Before we skip, because I think we've pretty much settled on the two that we've got. It's really good to see Ogbonna coming back at the rate he is. I don't think he'll be getting a contract extension, but I think it's really good to have him as an option, and he looks relatively fit in a pretty short space of time, which I think is good.
Yeah. He has looked like he's running through treacle at times, but again, I think he's a positive character to have in the dressing room, and obviously it's good for Scamacca as well, because where he's been on the bench as well, he's been able to, let's face it, he's translating for Kevin Nolan, which must be quite a culture shock for Scamacca to all of a sudden have Nolan giving you instructions.
I think most English players would struggle to translate Kevin Nolan. But I guess that's our back five for how we think our strongest 11 is right now. The midfield three is going to be interesting because there's kind of a few ways we can go about this, and there's definitely going to be a bit of debate here. But in terms of the DM, so the two standout choices are Rice and Downs right now, depending on how you kind of see the rest shaping up. Who would you have as our holding DM? Because there's an argument for Downs, which then gives Rice more license to go forward and play a little bit further forward and have that, protection behind him, which Souček doesn't offer when Rice does go forward with a ball at the moment. Or there is the alternative, which is keep Rice as the 6 and have 2 8s in front of him and, give Rice a little bit more structure and less freedom. And have the creativity come from the likes of your 2 8s who we'll mention shortly. So which angle would you guys take?
Rice 100%.
Yeah,
it's nothing against Downs. But I just think Rice is he's a 2 levels up player. However, and I kind of got a bit of criticism for this, but I don't think he doesn't produce enough going forward. And I don't mean he isn't good on the ball. I don't mean he can't carry the ball. I don't mean he's not progressive. What I mean is, if he wants to be box to box, have that free reign, he needs to score more goals. His finishing needs to improve, and he needs to be getting more assists. And he's not.
I guess the argument for that would be, Sloth, is that he's playing in a 2-man midfield a lot of the time with Souček, and we see Souček the one roaming forward. So when Rice kind of decides to pick up the ball, he's already quite deep, and he's carrying it, into areas that he isn't necessarily in. And when he is shooting, it's from range from 25 yards, which is not going to get you many goals in a season.
Whilst I would say that's fair enough, I don't think he's shown enough discipline in the fact that he's going forward and he's getting into the box. However, his midfield partner does leave him exposed, but you need to produce more. And he did well in Europe last season. What did he get? 5 goals or something across the season?
Yeah.
But for me, that doesn't cover the fact that when you have Paqueta and when you have Fornals, players who can do that job, for me, in a much better way. I'm not saying they're better players. What I'm saying is that for that role and for that position, they are better in that role. I don't think it's worth playing him in a free reign. Not when out of Fornals and Paqueta, the alternative to one of them is to move Rice forward and play Downs, who, nothing against Downs, but he proved it in a Europa League game that he looked good. And for a league game against Wolves, I would go Rice at CDM and allow him that bit more freedom, but have two experienced players in top leagues in front of him. That to me just makes far more sense.
For me, I'd rather just be far more positive in terms of who I'm putting on the pitch. As good as Rice is, there are still limitations in his passing. He does have good progressive passing. He can make a great pass, but it's that penetrative passing. It's that being able to spot that side roll pass that you essentially need in an 8. He still doesn't have that in his game. And to Sloth's point, doesn't score enough. He had, I think it was against Chelsea, a great opportunity. Ball comes on the edge of the area and he leans back and he skies it over because he rushes it. He still hasn't developed that composure to be that type of player. And when you have the likes of Paqueta, and obviously Fornals is another one who loses his composure in front of goal, but he makes up for it in other aspects. You look at that and go, well, why would you take one of the world's best defensive midfielders and just say, look, go and develop in this other role? No, we don't need you to develop in this role anymore. If you want to develop that role, you can do that when you leave. Quite frankly, right now, what we need is one of the world's best defensive midfielders to be the best defensive midfielder in the world. So let's stop with the indulgence. Let's stop with him taking penalty kicks. Let's stop with him taking long range shots from free kicks. Let's turn around and say, I need you now to concentrate on what you are the best at. I need you to get back to being that captain who's not throwing his arms up. I need you to be that player who sits there, mops things up. And when you get the opportunity, by all means break. And I think the two players that we would have alongside him would allow that because they are very comfortable in dropping deep and sitting and holding that position, picking up scraps and then finding a pass between the lines. And I think actually it will give him even more freedom in that defensive role because the two players alongside him will be consistently looking at him to go and break between a gap as they are on either side.
I actually think with Rice, especially at times last season, and we've seen it again this season, I think he almost gets so frustrated by what's in front of him. He kind of goes, screw it, let me just do it. I remember, I think it was Spurs away in the Carabao Cup last season. Second half, we were just, they sat so far back, and Rice was the only one on the pitch getting the ball, and he was literally just doing it himself. He was doing absolutely everything. So I think I kind of empathize with what he does sometimes because I also agree that sometimes on the pitch, there's no one else to do it. He's the one that's got to do that.
I totally understand that. I think when I'm criticizing him, I'm not saying he's not a good player at all. Like he's by far the best midfielder I've seen at West Ham in that central role. In my 29 years as a West Ham fan, he is head and shoulders above anyone else we've had in that position. And I think he is world class. However, he is not world class as a number 6 or as a number 8 going forward. And we're saying that he's got a player next to him who is holding him back, and I acknowledge that. But if that player is holding him back, the player needs to change. And then I think we've got two players who could come in and give him the freedom to go forward, but also provide a lot more security and work rate and ability on the ball. All those things that Souček is unfortunately lacking, they can come in and provide. It's not a criticism of Downs either. He could probably come in and do very well in that role. I just think that the other two players offer a lot more.
I also think if Rice was at, say, a Man City where his job was to play as a 6, he wouldn't be that bothered about what he's been trying to show for us in terms of going forwards as more of a box-to-box or an 8, because his defensive attributes are so good for a defensive midfielder. He is so good at what he does in that play. And if you have the creativity in front of you once he does that defensive part, whether he, gets a turnover in possession, a really good tackle or interception. If he has like pace in front of him, he would be, undoubtedly regarded as one of the best DMs in world football. And that's the frustrating thing, because I think he's caught in two minds at the moment, because like what I mentioned before, I feel like he carries that burden, especially being captain now, as he needs to do more and he needs to impact. He's constantly said in interviews he wants to add goals. He sees it in training himself that he's a good finisher. But like Mike, what you said, stick to what you are the best at. And, he is one of the best DMs.
I think at the moment, that's what we need, is what he is. And that's why I'm saying, let's stop the indulgences. Let's turn around and I think that the team, if you put in what I think we're both all going to say, it is going to allow those indulgences to come forward. He is going to be allowed to gallop forward. And it's, when I say indulgences, I don't mean it in necessarily a derogatory way as it sounds, but it's that we kind of have placated, many things. Like, let's think for a while, we was getting called the Basmati Busquets, right? And then all of a sudden, why have we then moved away from that? Busquets has made a career being one of the finest footballers in that position, even a player that Rice says he wanted to encapsulate. And now all of a sudden, no, I want goals. So people have obviously been telling him, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. When he was so good in that role, it's like we've filled him with too much air, pumped him up too much, saying you can do everything, which he most likely undoubtedly can. But he's not. At the moment, if we're going to be brutally honest, he's not scoring the goals. He's not getting the assists. If you're going to be an 8, that's a key part of what you need to do. He's not a Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard is at the perfect 8. If you want to embody what an 8 is, that is your perfect 8. Or an Iniesta. May not score, but what he does in creative-wise is phenomenal. Rice just isn't at that level. He's a very, very good 8, but he's a world-class defensive midfielder. I think would rather a world-class player than a very good 8.
I think, unfortunately, and we've seen the bleeding out of football Twitter into the wider kind of football media, where people are going, "Oh, he needs to add goals to his game." Well, 5 years ago or 4 years ago, when Kante was undoubtedly the best CDM and best centre mid, people were going, "Oh, isn't he? He's the beating heart of this team. He's amazing. He's this. He's that." Okay, how many goals did he score when Leicester won? And
the only conversation was, if he ever has any goals to his game, oh my God, he's going to be incredible.
And a couple of seasons ago, he started adding in a couple of goals, but that was because he had Kovacic and Jorginho in the same side. Like, he had these players around him who allowed him to kind of use that athleticism and get forward. But, and I hate comparing it to a Chelsea situation, but do the basics, do what you're good at. Sorry, do what you're, in my opinion, one of the best in the world at, and the rest will come. But at the moment, you don't need one player to take the whole weight of the world, all the weight of the side on his shoulders and think, I'm going to drag this team forward. Because that just will sap the life out of everything. It saps the life out of the players around them.
Yeah. Well, we've definitely settled that Rice should be the DM. I thought that would be the quickest one, but it's ended up being the longest. But yeah, so we're over halfway now. 6 players completing the team so far. We've got our attacking quintet to go. Before we get into that, we've got a comment from Smeagol here, which says he would like to see 2 up front. He saw Skamaka playing in the front 2 for Italy, and he looks so much better. What? Do you know? Very quick debrief from that. Do you think a 2 up top suits us? Would we then have to play a back 3? What are your thoughts?
I would love to see a 2 up top. However, we only have 2 fit centre forwards.
Yeah.
So it's the same old conundrum of, if one of them gets injured, we're back to 1 centre forward. And if some sort of freak incident, which would happen with West Ham, they both go down in the same game, we are screwed. So I would love to see 2 up top. I do think that should be something we look towards, particularly if we're behind in games or we're just looking for that goal.
Yeah.
simply don't have the squad for it.
I think you see at the moment, I think it's a great plan B and something, if you're trailing in a game, it should be utilised. I think both Arsenal and Man City this season, they've been training as a plan B in a different formation. So I think when they were behind against Fulham, Arsenal this season, they switched to a back three and played two up top with Nketiah and Jesus. And I think Man City did it as well when they were 2-0 down to Palace. So I think it's a great option. Like you say, our options are limited up front. And as Davis has just mentioned in the chat, Cornet and Scamacca could be a good one up top. Cornet has played striker before.
I think they're also developing quite a good rapport there. But I think probably we should move on to this one because we said we're going to keep it quick. But I think ideally we'd like to see a two up top. But I think it needs a three at the back formation for us to get that.
I think the issue is as well, we're getting square pegs and round holes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, I understand Cornet has played there at times, and I understand Bowen has as well. But when that right wing position isn't getting the performances you need, then focus on the right wing position. I think that's the more urgent point. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, if we did pick up an injury, we're just straight back to that issue of one player and praying to God that they don't pick up a knock.
Yeah. I mean, okay, let's move on anyway. We've got 5 more positions to fill. The next 2 are the 2/8s in the team in front of Rice. So some options to include: Fornals, Paqueta, Lanzini, and there's even an argument for Benrahma to play in one of those positions, and Souček, if I didn't mention Souček. But so let's start with Paqueta. Let's just start with that. Does he get in your XI? Yes or no?
Yeah, I'm just doing the 2 positions. It's going to be Paqueta and Fornals. I think if you're going to be playing with 2/8s and you're going to put Rice in that role as a deeper one, you need to then have 2 players who can progress the ball, who can get between the lines, who also will work their socks off and can make things tick from deeper positions. And I think they're the 2 players that can do that. Souček is not going to do that. You know, you just kind of look at it, go Coventry, he's not going to play there. Also, the fact that you can then have Fornals and Paqueta, they can alternate as to who's going to be the more advanced of the 2. I just think it gives a lot more balance. There's a lot more smarts about them. And those 2 players will do something unexpected potentially with the ball, or they will try and make a deeper, pass if someone goes and makes a run. So for me, they're the only 2 options. Obviously, you've got Lanzini as well, but I just don't see Lanzini as part of our future anyway, and I don't see it as part of this 11. So for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer. I've been saying it for so long that Fornals probably should be playing as a centre mid, and an 8 is probably his best position because he's not really a 10. He doesn't have the pace or the quality in front of goal. But yeah, Paqueta and Fornals is that in those 2/8 positions, I think can also unleash Rice. And it's also that thing of, if we want to then shore up the game, you can take one of those guys off and bring Flynn Downs on, even Souček. But what that does is you can also then, if you take off Rice, you can bring on someone else to push Rice forward and, you know, to slot in with Downs, you know. So that's kind of how I look at it. I think we're so poor in the final third and so poor in attack. We need players that are used to creating and who are creative elements in our team already. And I think we need to get as much creativity on the pitch. And the added bonus is they're both workhorses as well.
Yeah. I was gonna say with that midfield 3 of Rice, Paqueta, Fornals, more directed at you, Sloth. Is there enough defensively? You know, and also I remember you saying that, you know, Souček can give you 10 goals a season. Are we then replacing that with Paqueta and Fornals? Will they be able to do enough and more?
Paqueta can 100% give you 10 goals a season. And the thing is as well, both of those players can get you, you know, at least 5 goals. That's what they can do. So they can combine offer you 10, but they will also give you assists. Now, I know a lot of the criticism of Fornal. He doesn't have the pace, or sometimes his finishing is dodgy. However, he works hard, and in that position, he's got so much more ability on the ball than Souček. And to be honest, the only thing that I've seen Lanzini do that is better than him is his finishing with those really difficult chances. But he's got a fantastic first touch. He's got the ability to move the ball from tight spaces, and his tackling isn't great. Like we've seen it at times, but he gets stuck in, and that will create space. It creates chances for others, and for me, it's. I like Downs, but when we're talking about a centre mid, Fornals offers a lot more in terms of attack than Rice and Downs. So
and he's played centre midfield before as well, hasn't he? When he was in Spain, he played centre midfield, and let's face it, Iniesta turned around and named him as the player who should be his successor at Barcelona, and to be the new 8 for Spain as well. So,
I think unfortunately what we're seeing is he's playing out wide, and I don't think anyone would say, that's his best position. So why are we playing him there? Just get him where he should be playing.
Yeah, I think it worked so well, especially in the first half of last season, was because Fornals was actually coming inside off of that left, and Bowen was making so many good runs on the right, and there was so much space there, and that was where a lot of our goals came from. And even this season, we've seen it a couple of times. I think in one of the Conference League matches and against Spurs, Fornals played a first time pass through, and that is exactly what he can do, and that's why he should be playing centrally. And he has that technical ability, and not just with his feet, but his brain. He's such an intelligent footballer that he can kind of see the picture before it's happened. And that's when he can play those, first time passes through, and having him and Paqueta in front of Rice would be a really, really good midfield.
Yeah.
I just don't think Moyes would play it.
If you have better players in that central position, he doesn't have to try and force every time he gets on the ball. He doesn't always have to try and force to create something, which he has to do when he's playing out wide, because he has to come in searching for it, and he doesn't get the ball as much. So when he does get it, he's trying too hard to be creative. And obviously people will go, well, he does lose the ball a lot. He does. But I would rather have a player lose the ball by being being positive and trying to make things work than just to play a safe sideways pass.
Yep.
There's so much about Lanzini that's lauded from our fans because he holds possession. But ultimately, a lot of his play is kind of weak, and it's also against risk. I'd rather have a players that want to risk things, and we, maybe a little bit more open, because there's going to be that one pass in 10 that cuts someone through, and we score from it. Yep. So I'd rather see 10 misplaced passes and one that creates a goal or creates a shooting opportunity than just seeing someone who can just keep it going from side to side.
We've got the 2 players who are seen as luxury players by certain people, and they are not luxury players at all. They are workhorses who can provide you with the luxury of creativity and goals. And what they should is help with that physicality and break it up if they do lose the ball. But as you said, Moyes seems averse to playing this for some reason. That's my big worry at the moment. Yeah. But for me, that is by far your best 3. That is, in my opinion, one of the best 3s in the league. If you play that regularly and if they find form, that's one of the best 3s in the league. I would put that up there in the top 6.
Yeah, if you talk about how, say, Liverpool operate with their midfield 3, right? You have the one player who is that defensive player who mops things up. So they kind of like the general, which is just basically what Rice would do, like the Firmino kind of role. Then you've got like the Thiago type, who maybe sits deeper and tries to keep things ticking over and looking to play passes. That's a bit what like Fornals will try and do. He's nowhere near that quality. Obviously, let's be clear, these players are not necessarily the same quality. And then you've got Paqueta, who can do the Henderson thing, but also is much better in the final third and has that innate ability in which to get you on the edge of your seat and make you think he's going to do something, maybe a little step over or even a rainbow flick from time to time. But it's that you have that kind of dynamic where you have a player who will sit there and mop things up and will move from side to side and cover the pitch. You have another one who's going to then kind of orchestrate and keep things ticking over. And then you've got that box-to-box player who's going to get forward to cause problems, but also get back and help out. And I think that, and the best part is with Paqueta and Fornals is they can both do that box-to-box role, because Fornals has done that previously in Spain. And, so can Paqueta. So I just think it's the best ones. And, Sloth made a point about luxury players. At the moment, the biggest luxury player in our team is Bowen. And last season, one of the biggest luxury players apparently was Benrahma. And I said it so many times that whilst he is criticised for so many things, when you compare him to what Bowen would do in terms of his pass completion, which was far, far less, his dribbling was also pretty terrible. You've got Benrahma, who was performing to a much higher standard, especially statistically, and yet he was derided as a luxury player, mainly because of Moyes' comments. And he did frustrate. I'm not disputing that. He did frustrate. But he also got 16 goals and assists across all competitions. Bowen got the 20. And because he got that 20, or 20 plus, whatever it was, he was often kind of allowed. Like he'll go games where he is missing. And this is part of the problem that we've said with Soufal. He looks up, he's got nothing ahead of him because Bowen's wandering around trying to find space when it's not the time to be going and trying to find that space.
Yeah.
So, and I think at the moment, he is our biggest luxury player. He's the player who is arguably putting in the least work. Even Soufal, who's been bad, has been working hard. And so is Souček. They've been working hard. They've just not been up to a standard. Bowen, I've looked at and gone, where's your work rate?
I think with that midfield three, Liverpool's a really good example to liken it to. Another one is Man City, and Paqueta will probably be described as that luxury player by Moyes. But if you look at Kevin De Bruyne for Man City, look, again, not comparing the two, but De Bruyne's defensive attributes and his defensive contributions are unbelievable. You see what he does. He kind of acts as the second striker when they're pressing behind Haaland, and he will sprint time and time and time again. And that is exactly what Paqueta can do. He will work hard, and Fornals will provide that as well with the work rate. So,
and even Bernardo Silva, let's face it, who would have thought Bernardo Silva would have been a world-class centre midfielder in the Premier League based on his size and physique? And he just is. Because they're so good with the ball, you can't get near them. And that's the thing that people tend to forget, is that when you are good on the ball and you're able to have players who can rotate positions and find pockets of space, the size often doesn't become a factor in some games because you contain the ball. And I think that's our main problem is our defence is bad. So one of the things that we have to work with is we need to try and contain the ball a lot more, and probably to compensate for our defences. Maybe we need to attack more and be more offensive minded.
I mean, you look at when Pep first came to the Prem in 2015-16 or 2014-15, whenever it was. He was, people were saying, we can't play that kind of football in the Premier League. It's too physical. You've got, managers like Sam Allardyce there, playing that long ball. And the game has completely evolved since then. The last 7 years, especially in the Premier League, is so much more technical. And that's why, La Liga for a long time was the best league in terms of quality, because they had those technical players. And now a lot of those technical players are in the Premier League, and the best teams, Man City, Arsenal this season, Liverpool, even Chelsea, the football they were playing, very much technical based, and it's not based on the physicality that Moyes probably prefers, and the industrious players. So this is definitely what I would say is our best midfield three. Irish Tommy here has made a comment here, which we'll touch on because we already mentioned it before, but he says, playing Fornals in the midfield, free Shackles Rice as a DM. he would start Downs instead, so he can sit and allow Rice to play box and box. But yeah, as mentioned, we already covered that before.
Exactly. And I think we were right. I think what we're saying, we understand, yes, it's Shackles Rice, but he is a world-class defensive midfielder. He's not a world-class box-to-box player. And is he a better box-to-box player than Fornals? Probably not, because I don't think he's going to create enough. When we talk about an eight needs to create, he needs to score. Fornals creates more and scores more. Paqueta, the same.
Yeah.
So I would rather shackle Rice and allow him at points to come off the reins. Because the two next to him have allowed that.
That for me,
Downs, and we don't know where Downs is.
Yeah, that for me is the key. There is that Rice gives you that innate knowledge that if Paqueta and Fornals are out of positions, he will sit and he can break up play. But he also gives you the knowledge that if Fornals goes across, runs back and gets the ball, gives it to Rice, he can carry it 40 yards. He can do that. Now, the reason that we're saying we wouldn't pick Downs is because we don't know that he can do that yet. And when you have Fornals and Paqueta who offer a lot more on the ball than Rice in an attacking sense, it negates all of that kind of reason for having just someone to sit.
And as well, if you're playing against a two in midfield and you've got Fornals and Paqueta who start to drift wide, that midfield has to either go with them or stay narrow. So if it stays narrow, you've got two players that are dropping into positions either side of them on their blind side, or if they go with, they create a gap for Rice to burst through. So he still can do that box-to-box role, but it has to be, but there's a far more disciplined aspect to it, which I think is where he was so brilliant and where it made him that world-class player. I just don't think he's where many of us want him to be at for a box-to-box. But also, Davies has made a great point. Moyes is obsessed with height. We made the running joke throughout the season, throughout the pre-season and transfer window is he makes the height list. He passes that check. If he does remove Souček, then we are smaller at set pieces. We are smaller at the restarts, but let's be honest, Souček's winning of headers is drastically down from the first season. I think it's only just above 50%, where it was around about 60-odd% before. That's a massive drop-off, different change as well.
Just negate the height argument by having Fornals take the set pieces, because we've been crap at them, so we obviously need to change.
And Paqueta can take a set piece if he needs to as well. He's got the quality to do so.
Yeah,
we've got this licked.
Right. Well, let's move on to our front three. So we're pretty much there. I feel like this is again going to be up for debate. We'll start on the left because there's a couple of options we could go either side as well. But on that left-hand side, there are probably arguments for three players depending on how you want to play it. The first one being Benrahma, the second one being Cornet, and the third one being Antonio. So out of those three, who would you guys go with? Because you've got differences in all three of them. They kind of offer different things, and we've seen different things from both Benrahma and Cornet on the left this season when they've played. But who would you go with?
At the moment, because of what I would do elsewhere, I think it's Benrahma. I think he'll get the best out of Emerson. I think also he'd link incredibly well with Fornals and Paqueta as they're moving forward, and obviously as Rice moves out there. Also, he's been our best player this season. So to not have our best player play would feel slightly illogical to me. Yeah. So for me, Benrahma is the guy to start in that role. I think he's earned the right to start. Whenever he's played, he's looked bright. And again, if not for the woodwork, he would have scored against Everton. So I think that was, again, with as much as the results have not gone well, and if you look at results, there has been aspects where you just go a little bit of luck. We would have had a point at least against Everton. We would have had a point at least against Nottingham Forest as well. So, and at the very least, Nottingham Forest a point. So it's just, you feel for Benrahma because he's had a goal chalked off for Antonio and very unlucky not to score a brilliant shot against Everton. So Benrahma for me is the man. He's been the best player for us all season.
Sloth, what about you?
Yeah, for me, Benrahma 100%. I think he's got the. Let's not talk about it too much because I'll get worked up again. But we know he's offering the work rate, and yet he's getting criticised for not offering work rate, which he clearly does more than the guy on the other wing at the moment. So at the moment, he goes straight into that left wing spot for me.
Yeah, I think he's the most natural left wing out of the three options as well. Antonio can play there, and Cornet also can play there as well, and has done very well so far for us when he has. But Benrahma's just that natural left wing. If you give him the ball, he's that kind of winger you'd want to get the ball to. He will make mistakes, he will balloon crosses into Rosed, but he will also have moments where we saw against Everton, hit the bar really unlucky. He will create moments out of nothing. So, and yeah, I think he would flourish having Fornals Paqueta behind him. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that one. This one is going to be, I think, a bit more debatable, which is the right-hand side. And I think there's two clear options for that, which is Bowen or Cornet. Who would you guys go with?
I think on recent form, there's only one option, and it's Cornet. Cornet, whenever he's come on, has made an impact. If you look at Chelsea, for instance, he made an impact against Everton. He was unlucky not to score in the game against Everton. Every time he's come on, he looks a genuine threat. And because he's got an abundance of pace, and then again, if you've got that midfield, and I think if you've got Benrahma to have someone with that level of pace, and also someone who's clearly trying to prove a point at the moment as to why he should be there, I think he deserves it. The guy we got currently playing there is not the same player we had last year. I absolutely adore Bowen. I was calling for Bowen for years before we signed him. But at the moment, he's not doing the right things. He's making poor decisions. He's making decisions that benefit himself as opposed to the team more often than not. And whilst he's having fleeting moments in games where he looks like the Bowen of last season, it is just that. It's fleeting. He's not doing the necessary work in which to earn those rights in which to be selfish. And at the moment, I don't think he has earned the right to be as selfish as he has been on the pitch. Last season, he did. This season, he hasn't. And I think he's got to make better decisions, and he isn't. He's making decisions that benefit himself.
If he was scoring goals and getting assists and we were still losing, then you go, yeah, fair enough. Like I can understand it. But for me, as I said, against Everton, he offered absolutely nothing for probably 95% of the match. And then for 5% of it, he looked really good. Now, for me, I would just, I'd give him a kick up the backside, as I have quite a few of the players that we've already spoken about, and put Cornet there. Like, let him run at them, let him run, and let him prove why he should start. When it gets to 75 minutes, you can put Bowen on and say, right, that's your competition. Go out there and show me why you should keep that spot. I don't see how there's any risk with that, because you've got two players, one of whom is underperforming and the other who wants the spot. So
I think I really do like Cornet. I really do like what he's done so far this season. But in terms of a best XI, can we really put him over Bowen? I know Bowen's been poor this season.
But I think you've got to judge it always on the season you're playing, because we can always look back to past seasons and say, otherwise I think we wouldn't have Kehrer in, we'd have Dawson in. I think, and I know I've never been a huge fan of Dawson, but I would say Dawson, and then would also say Soufal over.
Not in terms of who's the better player, though. I would always put Kehrer above Dawson.
I would say, I say he was a better player, but I would also say that Dawson was a great defender last year. If we're looking at what was done last year, then granted, Bowen, but I don't think he's earned the right in which to be part of the best 11 at the moment, or be in the 11 at this point in time. I think he's, as Sloth said, he's offering very little. And when we're in a position as to what is our best team right now, he isn't part of the solution at this point because of his form. So we have to maybe look as to, do we actually do the unthinkable and drop a player who was undroppable last year and actually say, go on, Cornet, you go and make that spot your own. If Cornet goes in and doesn't play well, granted, Bowen comes back in, but it's that thing. If Cornet goes in and takes that spot, it's only going to be a good thing for Bowen because he has to fight for his place again.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with the point of, Cornet deserves to come in now. Cornet deserves to give it, give himself that opportunity to show what he can do, especially on the right wing where he can cut in on that left hand in from the right on his left foot and show a bit more, because I think he's a good left winger, but I actually think he'd be better on the right. And we haven't really seen that, but I can't right now put him as a better player than Bowen. And I know it's based on this season, and I understand that point, but I think we're underestimating how good Bowen was for us last season and how much he carried us.
I think we're accepting that this is based on this season's form. Like, Bowen was incredible last season, and I think in the end, if you take into account deflections and those kind of things, he hit 30 goal contributions, which is incredible. But you have to pick players on form, and as I said, if he was scoring goals and getting assists, I would 100% have him in the side. Like, you can negate a lack of work if they give you goals and assists, but he's not been doing that. And I just think he needs that kick up the arse. And in the time that Cornet has been given, he's used it to far greater effect, in my opinion. So
yeah. You said it for a long time, Sloth. Explosive pace is what we need, and he is that. He gives us absolutely explosive pace, and we're not saying that Bowen's a lightweight, but when we look at what we have in that front three, Benrahma has to start, and Benrahma you're not going to play as a right winger, so you have to play him left wing. So when you're then looking at someone else who's been making an impact like Cornet, and you compare his impacts or his positivity in relation to, say, what Bowen's been taken away from what happened last year, then you go, well, the guy who's currently starting doesn't necessarily merit it, as opposed to the other, which is, I think, is how we have to. If we're being fair, that's
well. If I was to ask you, away from form, away from that, who's the better player, Cornet or Bowen? What would you guys say?
Well, I think technically Cornet is a better player. Technically, yeah.
And
Bowen has a much greater aspect in the final third.
In fairness as well, let's not remember that last year Cornet was fantastic in a very, very poor Burnley side. Like, he was probably the only reason they were even in with a shout of getting some sort of safety, because he was carrying that side. And I think though Bowen undoubtedly had a much better season, I think we're kind of forgetting just how good Cornet was for Burnley.
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue with this season. So, yeah, I think, based on form and based on what's happened this season, Cornet.
We bullied you out of that one there.
Yeah, I mean, I could just change it myself and just put Bowen in there. But
yeah, guys, it's Cornet. Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah, it's just a new spelling.
Yeah, you both put your glasses on. Oh, hang on a minute. But yeah, all right, we'll go with Cornet on the right. And the last debate of this XI is the striker position, and two options: Antonio or Scamacca.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think? It's a tough one. I think it's a tough one.
Yeah, like, I don't think Antonio's been necessarily.
Oh,
he heard you.
Someone give me an answer. I don't think Antonio's necessarily been that bad, but he's not actually been that good either. So it's kind of again, he's another one that's played very well in fleeting moments. I thought against Everton, he was a bit of a lonely furrow, and I think he was onto a bit of a crap one no matter what. I don't think he really had much chance. But when I kind of look at it, for me, I just prefer Scamacca as to what he does to that team. He forces the attack to play. Now, he doesn't, and I think in the last game, he's getting called, one of the games, getting called a lamppost because he wasn't doing much. And then the very next game, goes and absolutely smashes it from 20 odd yards. Now, he's going to be a player that sometimes is going to frustrate. But again, because you need to get quality into him, and he forces a team. Against Everton, come on, absolutely smashed into Gay, got up and was like, and what? And there was Everton fans going, oh, look at the warrior Tarkowski pushing him about. He just looked at him and laughed. Like, what's his problem? But that's the thing. He doesn't care. Against England, he smashed through Declan Rice. It's like, does not care who he plays against. But it's the fact for me, he's not interested in that physical battle that Antonio sometimes gets a bit too involved in. And I think at the moment, Antonio's not getting any fouls as well. And you can see him getting frustrated. And I think that maybe just letting him be a bit of an impact player once in a while, seeing what Scamacca can do with that front three. Because if you look at that team, look how there is so much rotation there will be in that team. Having a player like Scamacca who is going to create space by dropping off the players and forcing first-time passes. And against Everton, he also did. He drifted out wide, but as soon as he got the ball, he wasn't interested in going down the line, which Antonio did. He just hit it inside and forced the winger to burst into space. And that's what he does. He essentially makes players take responsibility for their own actions, because he forces them to move. He forces them to run into space, and because he's going to try and create things. And if he makes that pass and they're not doing it, people may moan at Scamacca, but you also got to look at a player and go, well, why are you running onto that? That was a perfectly reasonable pass. And you're just standing there because you're expecting it to come back to your feet. He doesn't like static play.
Yeah.
For me, that's something that I admire in a striker, that he doesn't want to be static. Haaland is a player that hardly touches the ball, but he demands that players always forward because that's what he wants to go. And that's why I think Scamacca is similar in his mindset, although different in terms of his overall playing style.
Yeah. I think with how we're kind of setting up this team and being more possession based and more attacking and less counter attacking, Scamacca's better there than Antonio. If it was the other way around, I'd probably pick Antonio. But yeah, with everything you just mentioned, Mike, I think Scamacca will be frustrating, as is Antonio. Antonio's not perfect. We've seen him miss countless opportunities he could have scored. But I think Scamacca will be more clinical in those situations, but he'll also frustrate us by, we've already seen it, taking shots when when maybe one more pass is on, and being a bit more selfish. But that's what strikers do, and that's what gets them goals. So
I think he'll create the spaces when he does drop. He'll create those pockets where Paqueta or Fornals can drop into those awkward positions where it opens up a diagonal passing for, say, Ben Rama or Cornet as the centre backs come out. As they drive in field. So I think he just creates a bit more of the angles. And I think in some games, Antonio is going to be the man to play. But
it's also a great impact option to have if we do have Antonio on the bench.
And it is, I think, we've mentioned it would be nice to play two up top. I don't think we'll do that at this point in time. But I just can't. I think if you're going to bring a player on, of the two players who's probably be more of an impact, I think Antonio would be more of an impact as a sub than Scamacca would be. Because if you've been running around, also you've got a bulldozer coming on.
I don't know how long I've been saying it for now, but he is the perfect impact player. Because if you've got someone like Scamacca who's been pulling you around for the whole of the game, he's been working hard, making you fight for absolutely everything, and let's face it, physically just bullying you. And then suddenly you've got Antonio, who's got a bit more speed and a similar level of strength, probably more strength. Then you're just going to go, oh bloody hell! What a
long day.
And not that is that if they hit it long and I go and I don't get it and I don't beat Scamacca in the air, he could flick it on to Antonio, who's going to burst in behind, and he can outmuscle my centre back. It creates indecision, and I think that's Antonio coming on. I think creates more indecision and more concern in a team than him starting. A bit like Adama Traore when he comes on for Wolves. When he starts, you tend to be a bit less like, he's starting, he's not going to do it. But when he comes on, you just think, but my player's knackered. Like, he's probably going to cock up his shot and he's probably going to cock up the pass, but you still think, yeah, but he's going to cause problems because he's just going to burst into space with my players tired and crap.
Yeah.
It's that same thing.
Yeah, well, that if you've got a striker who you know is going to have a shot when he gets a chance, you know he's going to try and hit it, whether it's from 20 yards, 30 yards, he's going to go for it. Your wingers know that as well. So they're going to follow it in. And that is something that I've been quite critical of both our wide men at times. They just don't follow it in. So surely if you know your striker who, because Antonio has not scored a goal from outside the area. We cannot avoid that fact. And
Jamaica.
What a goal for Jamaica, though, yeah.
I mean, for us, but
oh wait, did he score outside the box against Brighton last season?
Brighton. No, granted, Brighton he did. It was that left footer. He absolutely smashed it.
Yeah.
So he had scored one.
No, he
One.
was. I was told he was touching the box.
Like, short that one off.
Yeah,
Never mind.
I'm pretty sure because I think I tweeted out like, oh, but that's his first goal from outside the box, and someone said actually his foot's touching, and I thought nah. But yeah, head in the hands moment. But you know he's going to have a shot. You know you're going to get potentially a chance of a tap in. So hopefully it just means that you've got someone who, even if he's not winning a knock on, if he's just having a pop, he's gonna create a chance.
Yeah, no, I agree. And as we just conclude this, one last comment from Sahil, which says self-destruction is putting players not in form with the hope that they'll fire instead of firing players already. So I have self-destructed the team. I apologise for putting Bowen in. But yeah. So one last look, lads. Is there anything you would change with this? You know, are we all on agreement?
Schumacher is not as a front man, not Bowen.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, my bad.
No, but I think, you know, that's a great point by Sal. It's basically, you know, the Einstein definition of insanity, doing the same things, expecting different results. That's at the moment what Moyes is doing. And, you know, this probably, I think, if we're really honest, you know, what we've said here is probably too radical for Moyes.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him do it, but I don't want to say favourites because it's kind of lessens the argument. But, you know, you just do kind of look at it and think that there are no repercussions for players being out of form, but when certain players are in form or make an impact, it makes no relevance. So I don't think it's great for man management. And I think if we were to go for formation and a selection like this, I think we'd be a far more appealing team to watch in the attacking third. And yeah, we might concede goals, but, you know, it'd be interesting. We might be the old West Ham where it's like, yeah, well, we'll just try and outscore them.
Yeah.
Let's not forget as well that you will get more time if you play like that.
Yeah.
And if you lose games for, like, you know, 3-2, then you're more likely to get a lot more time and a lot more favour from the owners than if you're losing 1-0 and you look crap for 65 minutes. Like, it's just the way of the world, and the fans will appreciate it more if you go out there and you try and score, you get goals. Then you can say, oh well, the other team just took their chances, or this cost us the game. But the problem is when we're not scoring goals, then everything else is meaningless because goals are games, and it's irrelevant. If your goalkeeper could have a 10 out of 10 performance for 89 minutes, if they score on the 90th minute and you lose the game, it's irrelevant.
Yeah. I think it's like the Fergie mentality, wasn't it, where he said that he'd rather lose a game 3-1 than, you know, to lose the game 2-1. You know, it was always, I have to attack. And it's the thing of, again, we're West Ham fans. We all got brought up on the idea that we played possession football or we played attacking football. That was what we were brought up on. And, you know, I think we probably all have that within us, that we rather would see our team be a bit expansive. We're used to a defeat. We can take a defeat, but we want to see entertaining football. And we have a team there or we have a squad now that should be playing entertaining football and should be exciting in the final third. And at the moment, it's just not clicking.
Yeah. I think that's the key point. Is when Moyes first came in, we didn't need. There was no emphasis on this style of play. It was right. Beat the drop. Okay, tick. Next season, right? Where can we kind of develop? We didn't make too many signings, but how can we kind of progress and push towards maybe the top half? Got top 6 playing really good counter-attacking football because no one really expected us to be this kind of amazing team that we turned into being. And again, last season, counter-attacking first half of the season was great. People started to clock on, okay, they're still up in, that top 4 battle again. And we kind of run out of steam again. And, that counter-attacking football, we got found out. Moyes got found out. And this season, it's kind of a similar pattern, playing a back 5, in games like Aston Villa, and then changing it at half time. And, immediately a complete different team came out with Benrahma on the pitch. And, even, Chelsea away, where we probably should have got something from it. But for large periods of that game, we were very, very, very defensive. And we had a lot more opportunities to attack and exploit them. So if we want to, establish ourselves as this team, we need to transition towards this style of play as well, because we've got the players to do it. It's not about sacrificing, the success we've had for just attacking, beautiful football, but, subsequently we're going to drop league positions. I don't think that'll be the case, because we have the players to not only finish in the top 7 again, but maybe even improve on that, play in this style as well. It's just whether Moyes is, willing to kind of adapt his philosophy a little bit and play players in their kind of more natural, comfortable positions, and go less off what's happened in the past 2 seasons, which I do empathise with him. I understand why he's consistent with this, because it's worked for him for 2 years. You're not just going to change it at the click like that. It's gonna take time, but I think we've seen enough.
You think as well, though, he kind of did abandon it this summer. Like, he had the idea, and this summer he went, I'm changing it. But then his selections haven't backed that up.
I think the disappointing thing as well is when the game that we shall not speak of happened, and we should have got something from the game, but we got that by playing attacking football and by just causing Chelsea absolute mayhem. Like, we went to their backyard and we caused them hell. And yet the team that came out against Everton was toothless, absolutely toothless. In both halves, really, for large amounts of the game, they were toothless. And you think, where's that team gone? Where's that side? Where's the performance that we had earlier gone? And if the manager can't see that is the problem, then that raises bigger questions.
Yeah, we think to wait till we're 1-0 down to.
I obviously want change. I obviously want us to start picking up points, and I ideally that would be under Moyes, but something has to change with the mindset, because at the moment, even though we're getting the best results, when we change things up, we're still reverting back to that game plan where we lose. And we've played, I'm going to give a little bit of credit here. We've played some of the biggest teams in the league. We played Chelsea, we played Spurs, we played City. And they're not games you'd expect something from. But Forest and Everton, you would. And unfortunately, it's just been down to game plan.
I think that's the biggest thing right now is mentality. We often start games really slow, really poor, and it takes us to go a goal down to actually start playing football. And even Rice has said it himself in interviews after games. He's like, it shouldn't be that. Why does it take us to go a goal down to start playing the football we know we can play? So transitioning from that kind of defensive mindset into something like this would probably help with that. And
I think that's the problem. I think that sums it up, is that why do we play well? It's because all of a sudden in their minds, we now need to be positive. We need to be progressive with the ball. We need to show intent. They aren't showing that when it's 0-0, because they've been, it's Moyes. We all know that Moyes is always, let's keep it tight, let's keep it sensible, and let's take our opportunities when they come. And that's our structure. That's our play. Let's work them on the counter attack. And then when all of a sudden we go 1-0 down, we have to attack because they then sit back. So we have to then force ourselves on the game. And we have the talent to force ourselves on many teams in the Premier League and in the league. We just need to start doing it, or players need to take the responsibility at some point to go, hang on, this is the way the game is going. We need to actually make some on-field decisions and abandon partly our game plan and be more progressive. And I think that's it. At the moment, there's not enough leaders on the pitch to see what's happening and say, right, this is what we're now doing. You know, things change in games. You know, managers will always say, I want to see these things. But I think every manager wants to see their team and their players solve problems on the pitch. And at the moment, we're lacking leaders who are making those points to the team on the pitch as to this is what we need to do. And we're not doing it enough.
Yeah. I agree. Well, we got a game Saturday against Wolves, so we'll see how perfect this lineup will be in comparison. But let's just run through one more time our best XI we think we've got at the moment, and it's just based on who's fit at the moment, with the exception of Johnson, who's might be back. But we've got Areola in goal, Johnson, Zuma, Kehrer, Emerson, Rice, Paqueta, Fornals as the three midfielders, and Benrahma, Scamacca, and Cornet as the front three. Well, lads, that was really good. Let's see if this will work. We're back.
Frank's back. He's got it working already.
Yeah, exactly. Looking forward to the weekend. Football is back. We've got our Wolves preview coming out tomorrow afternoon. So if you want to look at what we think the lineup will be for that match and a bit more tactical insight, then just come back tomorrow around 4ish. I think it's going live. So thanks for joining us on this stream. It was a nice long one, and it's good to be back on the channel as the famous three once again. And as always, leave a like on the video if you did enjoy. Comment down below what you think your best XI is on paper. At the moment, does Bowen get into it, or does Cornet take that spot? Would you like to see Rice a bit more further forwards? And who wins the battle out of Scamacca and Antonio up front? But that's going to be all from us. And we'll be back tomorrow with that preview, and then probably at the weekend for a review at some point. But until next time, come on your mind.